So welcome back at this afternoon hall, as they call it. First session after the lunch. Usually, we will try to get back your energy because we are going to speak one very important topic, which, as they say, makes the world go round, and it's money. And I guess there's no one in this room who really needs money. So today we are speaking about the equity and the financing of the innovation industry, and what we've been listening throughout yesterday and this morning sessions. We will try to discuss and to find what are the necessary financing and investment vehicles supporting the growth and the evolution of disruptive and startup ventures and disruptive industries. I've invited very well-known speakers who have a broad experience working in this region, and some of them are actually coming from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, furthermore from the Pacific Coast and Silicon Valley. So it's my pleasure to introduce first Vera Kenehan, Vice President of Parallel Wireless from Silicon Valley. Then we have Julien Coustaury, Managing Partner of Rouge Capital. Dejan Tonić, he's EBRD and the Regional Coordinator of Star Ventures program for the Western Balkans. Božidar Pavlović, Director and Partner in newly established fund AYMO Ventures. And Mr. Vladan Balaban, owner, founder, or co-founder and the President of M&I Systems. So when we speak about innovation industry in our areas, usually we find the situation in which we see a lot of talent. This is something that we are all really proud of, and we often emphasize this fact. However, it is that we are, unfortunately, with a very limited success, are making companies who are able to become globally competitive. And here we are to discuss what are potential reasons and what we can do about. We had very fruitful discussion during the lunch. Moreover, and eventually, we have been through the topic, so we have said that really the missing ingredient is equity. That is boldly something that is on a low level on these areas, that the financing usually is provided by the banking sector in form of debt, which is pretty much a burden, especially for the startup companies, especially in these situations when they can even hardly get those banking debt. So what are the instruments and how and what we can do to support the growth of innovative companies in these areas? I would like us to have three topics that we will try to reveal today. First one is what are the domains, what are the industry verticals investors are really looking for, and what are your investment policies? So where do you see the growth, where do you see the yields? And I would like every one of you to elaborate a little bit of your investment policies. Maybe we can start with Julien. Since the Rouge is well known as a so-called pre-seed investment vehicle, and could you tell us a little bit more of what you're doing and what are you actually looking for?
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me. What do? We generally write the first check, and that's how we start. So we've got a couple of products. One we call Startup School, which is €10,000 check, which is really to get an entrepreneur started. And basically, it's someone coming to us with an idea, and we said, okay, we like your idea, just get incorporated and get going. And then hopefully follow on with another check in our accelerator program, which is 3 months, and you get, let's say, 50 to 100,000 euro. And then you progress to a more VC type of investment with, let's say, 500,000 euro, and we still have money for follow-ons up to a million. So we are super, super early. We are extremely pleased. We are based in Zagreb. We've made 130 investments in the last 2 years. I think we've deployed approximately 30 million euros so far. And we're working on our next fund to continue that. In terms of sector, I suppose there are a couple of things that we look at. We look at everything in general when it's tech related. I would say there are 2 sectors at the moment which we kind of focus our attention on. One is anything that has to do with carbon recapture. It's becoming a pretty strong trend. What we like is that it used 3-4 years ago, it was a trend that would be imposed by regulation. And now we see this more as a trend that is driven by a market. So we don't like to go when regulations are, because by nature, regulation change. But when there is a market need and we can see it, we like it. So we've done recently a couple of early stage investment exactly in that field, which is something we really like.
ESG is certainly something that is hot topic these days.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can see it being driven, as I said, more by need than by regulation. And that's when we decided to get into it. The other sector we kind of like a lot these days is anything that has to do with TV and the way to distribute content in general. Mm-hmm. I think you've seen what's happening with Netflix, Disney Plus, and all that. If you will, the way to disintermediate the distributor of content. And we find this very interesting, and we think that the model could be replicated in a couple of other verticals in that. So we've made a couple of investments recently in call it a Netflix for second-tier sports. So the sports that have a huge following, like stupid things like dart, which actually is not so stupid. It has a huge following base, but if you want to watch dart on TV, you never find dart. So there are a couple of things on the way to disintermediate the content distribution, and we found that quite interesting. So these would be the 2 areas we look at. I know you're going to ask me about blockchain and all that, or NFTs.
I meant to do so, but okay. No. You will tell us whatsoever. And I saw actually one of your pitches recently, and the most of the applicants were actually the companies offering some sort of Uber-like model in some particular niches, but not really that creative. How you look at that?
I mean, look, we are, in our opinion, we are seeing the end a little bit of the Uber model. We think that a lot of things in what's called the gig economy has been explored. We are not super bullish about that. There will be new winners emerging for sure in this, but at the moment we are kind of a bit lukewarm on that. We are still very big fan of marketplaces in general. We think that is a very strong way to go. I mean, using the internet to different vertical of services is still very much unexplored. So we would rather go to marketplace rather than this gig economy. On top of this, gig economy is suffering a severe lack of manpower, which is a very big problem for growth. I mean, you can think about Uber and Glovo and all those platforms. Yeah. Really struggling to meet demand with lack of...
This is what we have listened on the previous panel from our colleagues from the logistics. So. Okay. Božidar, you are about to first close your new fund, AYMO Ventures, which is aimed a little bit higher than those of Julien is doing. So actually, so-called scale-ups or E-series investments. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and your investment attitude?
Yeah, actually, I'm a kind of a newbie here because I'm a first-time founder fund founder. The idea is basically we would like to continue where Fil Rouge stops, so to speak. Yeah. So we have realized that in the region there is an obvious scarcity of growth funds, because once companies reach a certain level of, when they reach a product market fit that is proven, when they reach some revenues, when they have an appealing business model that can be globalized and is scalable, then usually they're struggling with additional rounds of funding, and then the funds from Hungary or from Czech Republic or from Poland or from the US jump in, which is nothing wrong per se, but those guys are usually receiving like this thick number of applications for the funds. And what we are offering, we're building the fund that would be hopefully 150 million, which would be one of the biggest funds in the region. A little bit of shameless marketing, we're currently still fundraising, so if you have a few million spare, just let me know. But there's an obvious need, and there is an impressive number of companies that are in this stage of development right now that are willing to, looking for investment of 1 to 10 million euros for the scalability, for the globalization, for stepping out of this region towards either Western Europe or even US. And I think it's exclusively tech companies, which is kind of normal because this region here has already 3 unicorns, and I'm really looking forward, very soon we will have more. So there's obviously lots of talent around here, but what Dan was mentioning, we lack money. And Fil Rouge is making a great job, but it's still not enough. I mean, we still need more money in those initial phases, and then in the growth as such, and we will be more than happy to hand over our funded companies to some of the bigger guys, just like Infobip did with One Equity Partners. We do have, as a fund, we will invest in Infobip as well in the pre-IPO round. This is like a special deal, but I think it kind of moves away from our initial investment idea or strategy, if you want. But this is something that we really couldn't miss. So they will run a pre-IPO round very soon.
So obviously the situation in Croatia and Slovenia as EU members is rather better. There was information that in 2021 Croatia only has closed 44 VC deals in excess of $1.2 billion, most of it actually coming in 2 transactions, Rimac and the Infobip, and then the rest, small tickets, mainly from Fil Rouge. However, it's a very interesting figure. And, bridging the gap and preparing these pre-seed rounds and the role of EBRD and the views of EBRD and the purpose of Star Ventures program and how EBRD is helping as an institutional investor to companies to grow and to reach this level. We can hear a little bit from Dejan.
Thank you very much. Well, it's not by chance that I'm sitting between Julien and Božidar. So actually before this new fund is going to pick up the startups being already supported in their seed stage by Fil Rouge and similar VC funds, Star Venture is trying to, and so far doing well, in filling in that gap. The program is actually being designed in a way to use the experience of European Bank for Reconstruction Development in the equity deals. It's been running for 30 years now, and the support to SME-sized businesses. The gap we see between these two levels of not just investment, but the levels of maturity of businesses is being filled by different types of advisory, mentoring, exposure to investment mechanisms kind of services. And so far, in this part of the world, the program was piloted in the Western Balkans region, but it appeared that the need, the necessity for such support is actually needed in a wider Central and Southeast European region. So it's going definitely to be expanded in more countries than the Western Balkan 6. Regarding the experience we had as a program in dealing with this matter, it could be too soon to take out some special fields of improvement of the ecosystem, or to point out some specific type of businesses that's going to be a new leaders of the market. One, it's actually a very small market. If you put us all together, we're still very small. B, there is no enough money. Still, if there is money, there is no adequate support in how to attract that money, how to present these businesses in the right way. But one thing for sure, in general, if we can take an overview of the market, is that the tech businesses are definitely something that the region can count on in the near future as the possibility for future expansion. From one hand side, it's because the costs for, or the efforts, the resources you need to start such a business are not that huge as comparing to other startups that you may start. And second, the exchange of information with other markets, the other regions, is being faster and faster. And three is the whole thing has been moving so fast in the last couple of years, starting from education, where you had to go through to university and spend years and years to get some basics of dealing with the tech matter. Now it's actually a couple of months courses that would, made you at least equal to those who spent years in academia. And I think the last point that I would like to emphasize is the transition of the region after 30-something years is finally at its peak in terms of the values, the courage, the potentials that individuals are ready to take and to start their own businesses. Yet with our, and when I say our, I mean the cumulative support that we can provide.
Okay, thank you. Vera, you are a partner in the agri-tech-based VC fund. You are vice president of an IT company working on solutions for 5G. And also you are mentoring student startups on Stanford University. So what's different in the States comparing to Europe? How you see the differences and what can be learned from Silicon Valley?
Okay, I'm going to completely ignore your question now.
Please do so.
Sorry, I'm joking. But how many people actually think that they will raise money for the startup here in the room? Is there people who at some point believe that they will be raising funding or trying something, or okay. So I guess that one of the things that I just realized talking today is that because the ecosystem is not existing in the same way that as in Silicon Valley, there's much less specialized funds here than there is in Silicon Valley. So in some sense, it's much easier maybe to find the founder investor fit here than in Silicon Valley. So probably if you go there, you have to think about, Ribbit Capital or Thrive Capital, for example, they invest in a lot of consumer consumer brands, right, like Warby Parker and others. Then you have Ribbit Capital that is specialized on fintech, Benchmark that does all this range of software platforms, cloud-based software platforms, and so on. So you have to be more mindful to segment your investors compared to here, right? You have to know exactly where you're going for which stage and whom to engage with. I think that's probably one of the core differences. I mean, the difference is also in the amount of capital that goes into Silicon Valley. You know, it's just incredible hearing all the time. There is another fund that just raised $1 billion here and $1 billion there. And so I think the administration is much higher in Europe than it is in US. It's much easier to raise funding, but there is also a lot of discounting. As soon as you start moving from Silicon Valley eastward, like, you know, what is 3 million in Silicon Valley? It will be 1.5 already in Florida. There's already 50% of discount for the same stage and round. I think another sort of a testimony to administration, we were just talking about some grant we raised. So we wrote 80 pages grant for $1.5 million in Israel with the team. And we wrote 15 pages grant for $15 million in US, right? So the amount of work, like I couldn't get my team to actually work on this first grant. And it was really political grant, we had to get it. So it's much easier to access the funding, but then you have to be really, really sharp on who you talk to, where you go, and you have to have all the parameters, you know, all the boxes checked in terms of product market fit, understanding your business really, really well, right? All the numbers. And so to look back to the fund that I'm working with, it's Agroecology Capital. It's a fund that invests in very few startups. So we do maybe 3 startups a year. It's sort of a privileged position to be in. We don't need to spread too much. We are, you know, it's all about knowing the data, right? It's all about understanding. It's almost like an NBA player stats, you know. We have our data that we're looking into, and you know, within those boundaries, we are very happy to do the investments outside of those boundaries. You can be the best company in the world if it doesn't fit the thesis, right? And sort of that's because this is an e-commerce related discussion. I think, you know, the SaaS-based subscription models, right? If you look into those, I just heard 2 weeks ago somebody said to me, like, I don't even talk to the startup. Like, I mean, first, you know, as an investor, I don't look at them. We just have our, what do you call them, associates actually look at data, and based on that data, we decide whether or not to have that conversation. So, you know, knowing your metrics really well. I mean, for us as investors, knowing our metrics, which is how we best allocate the capital, and then on the other side, startup knowing their metrics really well in order to be able to get access to capital. And there's one thing which I think is really important as a startup to think about, which is if I go to an investor and I have a really good company, you're actually competing with all the other startups who are also really good and are probably going to be very successful, right? So somebody has to decide that you're going to be better. And it comes down how you allocate the funding, right? The money that you get. Who has done the best job to actually allocate the funding up to date? That will give you a lot of indication on how they're going to allocate the funding going forward. So I think I can talk forever, but I'll stop here.
Yeah. Vladan, you know, being an entrepreneur in nature and co-founder of a big company, and as we have discussed during the preparation, unfortunately, the most of the good companies in this region are usually coming out of so-called bootstrapping or personal or friends and family money. And the company has grown to something that now allows you to be also in the position of the investor and looking for some other diversification opportunities. But also you have been working with US-based VCs, so we would ask you to share your experiences a little bit about that.
Julien said a great thing. Somebody asked on our lunch, how do you move all the IT companies from offshoring business, outsourcing business to product development companies? So Julien said money. So yes, money and equity is probably the most important thing. But you can take us, we're probably the best example, or one of the best examples in the region. That we came as a, sort of say, a startup at the beginning of the 90s that we do through bootstrapping, ideas, building our own software, being more innovative and different. But we were not fortunate enough at that time to have funds, right? But we went through all that family support and all that ideas and stuff that actually made us what we are today. So you can look at us from the two point of views. One is investor, and one is somebody who went through all this turmoil of all these processes of ideas and everything. So first, before the money, you have to have a passion. You have to have a great idea. That idea has to be innovative. We talk about here disruptive innovation. I'm not going to talk a lot about money because I'm not a financial specialist or professional, but because of the business I'm in, it made me actually, I had to learn that. So first you have to have an idea, and whoever wants to have a startup have a great idea. How that's what we had at that time, and today when we look at some startups or some ideas that we want to develop, first thing is that it has to be innovative. It has to be different than others. So whether we're talking about e-commerce or, I don't know, RPA or AI or blockchain, and we're talking about technology and all these buzzwords about digital transformation, all that stuff, it's all great, but your product has to be different. And on the other side, when we started doing that, I thought we were different. But then you come to VC funds or private equity funds that are actually approaching you with the money, and then you get scared because they're asking you all these numbers, metrics, what's your ROI, MRR, ARR, everybody's talking about SaaS, clouds, you have to have a rental software, no more software on-premise and all that stuff, and you get scared because you get the money, as Vera said, and you don't know how to allocate it. Do you have the model to do it, right? So in that sense, you have to have another side or a partner as a VC fund or a private equity fund that actually understand as well your business. This evolution in the US or Silicon Valley or out west is actually happening very fast, and it's great because a lot of these companies now hire professionals, IT professionals, or whatever the domain knowledge is in order to understand what we're trying to do. And then it's a great moment for you to get the money because that money becomes smart. They are leading you to the process. First of all, through your idea or innovation, they are actually believing in you, trusting in you, and giving you some money. But then once Julien gave me money, right, he's not going to give money unless he gets a big and fast return on investment. He's actually caring about that. He's leading you through the process that you probably won't know. Because in most of the cases, all of us started as an IT guys, engineers with some idea, enthusiasm, and all that stuff. Which is, as I said, I'm coming back to my first thing. Passion and believe in yourself and your team, it's a great thing. So from that point of view, once you get that smart money, then the process actually starts. In the US, you asked me about the US, we worked with this one private equity fund, so we are in the business of, in the US financial tech. That's one thing that usually that we, when we invest or we try to get involved as angel investment or seed money into some startups like we did in some in the region, we really try to understand their business as well. And then at the same time, we try to see if that business or that product that we are investing in, can we actually sell that within our ecosystem, within our group, what's the use of that? And then the next step is obviously going global. That's another thing that we all here in this room have to get in this culture of ours out of these patterns or these cages that we have, that we are not an offshoring market. There's a lot of great products, and with our products, we can actually go globally. But you have to go through this process that I was just mentioning now. So, passion, great idea, then smart money, and then somebody who's going to lead you to that process. So to get back to that financial tech business that we get in, because we understand that domain knowledge, so our people are not just technology guys who know blockchain or, I don't know, online trading platforms or crypto or whatever, but they understand the process, because the process is the same. Everybody talks about digital transformation. Digital transformation was 20 years ago as well. You can have an information system on paper as well. ERP 1991 or 92, and today it's the same thing. Finance and accounting is the same thing. But the technology gives you something to do faster, to optimize the process, to be less costly, to use people for something more creative or whatever. And this is what's happening. So it's not some great mystical thing. It's the same thing what we have done in 90 we do now. But now you have a software robot, you have an AI, and these are the differentiations that you have to take a technology and then put it into use in everyday business. Give a name to that.
And you are working a lot of software robots, RPA and AI in your company. So is it your...
Exactly. One of our startups is just that. I didn't have a clue about that once they came to idea with me to that. But one thing when they explained it to me, I asked my colleagues, let's see where we can put that in use with our clients. Let's see where we can optimize the process. And then we saw a great use of that. Then we saw what UiPath did, obviously. So then we invested into this. And then we started using, we actually returned the money just on the client base, local client base that we had here. And now, then the VC fund comes in, and then all that thing starts in terms of sales plan. You have to have 100% year-over-year growth. You have to have, I don't know what kind of EBITDA, this and that, which is all the great. But this is a great thing. I'm going to finish this first part. You have to have a passion. And when you start something like that, it's not really motivated to tell people, hey, you have to grow 100% year-over-year. Here's your 5 million euros. Do something with them. You get scared. And that can actually make a lot of trouble for yourself. So you have to always believe in what you do. It's like an athlete. You know, nobody, Michael Jordan or whoever, didn't start playing basketball or hockey or whatever because first thing in his mind was, I want to make 10 million a year. He loved the game. He was playing with it. He had a passion for it. So that's the same thing. And one thing it's very important when Vera said about statistics, you know, startups versus growth companies or mature companies. We have a mature company. M&I is nothing special. It's a company of 20 million euros in the region with about 25% EBITDA, nothing special. It's a very modest, medium company, right? If we compare to Infobip or I don't know who, right? Which is great. But it's also a company that tries to acquire some other business. So what we did diversification of business within our ecosystem that we can do. But when you take our startups now, it's a great thing. Maybe you guys want to hear. It hurts me a lot. 25 years I've been doing this business, and now I'm realizing that valuation of my business, so 400 people, it's less than this RPA business. I'm not going to name it's worth more with 10 people and 1 million euros of revenue. But that's great. One guy told me a great comparison of that. It's like in basketball or hockey or NFL or soccer. You used to go to college to recruit players. And you would look at their stats. You would say, this guy is good with the left hand, he's good with the right hand, he can go left and right, he scores 25% points a game, or I don't know, this many rebounds, this and that. And on basis of these statistics, you draft that guy or pay him. Today, you get kids from, I don't know, Bosnia, Serbia, Africa, all over the world who are 14, 12. They look their motorics, their athleticism, their mind, their long arms, and they invest into them right away, right there. And that's a startup compared to a company that I'm in. And this is probably very weird, but this is our reality. So yes, at the end, money is very important. But all these stages you have to go through, and it's a great learning process. So that's what it is.
Yeah, correct. And then you are in a position where you have a passion, you are committed, you are an excellent player, you are having long arms or, perfect left hand, and eventually you are quite unique at the times when globally there is overflow of money, like there is no precedence probably in history, and all the financial systems of the world are struggling to channel this money to good targets and the companies who will generate value. And somehow these enormous amounts of money are not finishing here in these areas in spite of a lot of talent, in spite of efforts of the big financial institutions, the efforts of the people. So what's missing? Are we literate enough to ask for the money and to apply for the fundraising? What we have to know be visible or interesting
Obviously,
or attractive
For example, I just met Julien, Božidar, Vera. First of all,
and please come in and let's try to make the discussion more interactive, because
we just exchange ideas. I think first networking is very important. I think there's a lot of great and smart people here. There is VC funds, there's EBRD, there's a new VC funds, there are people all over the world. But as I said, I think first of all, a way more meets like this, way more networking, and changing our minds, as I said, of our startups or our companies and stuff like that. I know it's hard, but obviously we already have some great examples, as I said, InfoBip or
Vera, would you elaborate a little bit on that? And what would be your ideas and recommendations? What has to be done?
Yeah, I think
or what can be done?
Yes, I think one of the really important things is actually learning a specific mindset. We discussed that earlier, and this is not what I'm sort of just rehashing what we talked about during lunch. Silicon Valley is great because it worships the culture of failure, right? To build a startup, you have to fail many times and feel really comfortable with it. And so I'm going to give you an example because that's a really good, and then we can talk a little bit more about what that entails. A startup that I was advising, a founder was very passionate about solving something in healthcare. So he came up with this idea to build an infrared camera that is going to help people. They're going to take pictures. It's going to help people to detect cataract early, right? Sounds like a great idea. Nothing you can do with it, right? Because it's like, okay, what do you do with this camera? Where do you place it? Who's going to use it? Who's going to clean it? Are you going to pay people to help you and so on? So then he figured out, okay, let me do something else, right? So he was already attached emotionally to this idea, invested time and money. And very often when people invest time and money, they get very emotionally attached. So it's hard to switch. But that's the most important moment, is that switch that you can make. So the next thing is he figured, okay, let me buy all the equipment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into companies with the equipment. We're going to do eye exams, and then we're going to deliver glasses quickly. So people are going to get their glasses at work. They don't have to spend time. They don't like going to optometrists, et cetera, et cetera. Great, companies like Twilio, like Facebook started hiring them, bringing them over to do that. What happens? Pandemic starts, right? So now his business is completely dead because it involved the personal interaction. Everything's closed down. So what he did is sort of breathe down the company. They let go of a number of people. They reduced to a couple of people and continued brainstorming on the ideas until they realized they can actually be an intermediary for the eye care insurance, right? So that's sort of what they're exploring, what they're doing now, and the Fast Company wrote an article about them being one of the most innovative companies in Silicon Valley. I mean, that's maybe an overstatement, but the point being is that they've actually changed several times, right? So I think that's one of the things is really you have to have that mindset. You have to be able to fail. Another piece which I think is really important is that people, we all talk about the product market fit, but it's actually really hard to know because there's so much desire, in believing in your product, in wanting it to work and so on. So you kind of underestimate, and it's very hard to describe the product market fit because you see so many startups, and when you see one that has it, you just feel it, it's out there. But the way maybe I would say it is that, instead of a push, there is a pull, right? So the market is really pulling you. You're doing something and everybody wants it, everybody likes it, people take it even if it's sort of half working because it solves a big need for them, right? That's sort of, if you can find something, when you sense that the market is pulling, I think that you're closer to that product market fit. So I think that the mistake people make with the product market fit, believing that it's there when it's not, that's, I think, one of the killers for many of the startups. So again, I'm going to stop here.
Dejan, the mission of your program is actually to prepare the companies to apply for funding.
Yes, to prepare. And actually, we have identified it's not just the financial illiteracy that we can see among the startups. You can see it in even more mature businesses, the companies that have been active and successful at the market for decades still have the management that are not ready or they don't know how to present themselves in the right way to investors, new clients, new markets, etc. What we are missing in this region is generally the maturity needed for starting the business and running it. So it appears that starting a business, making a startup, is something that belongs to young people, which should not be the case. I mean, not okay with the energy, okay with the new energy, the willingness to start something new, and the communication they make with the rest of the world, and trying to apply certain things that are working elsewhere in this region. That's one thing, but it actually, what we are missing is knowledge. We're missing the context, we're missing the experience. The typical entrepreneur...
But you are not speaking about the domain knowledge, so
Yes,
the people know,
yes.
you know.
What Vladan and M&I Systems are doing, it's something that should be an example that other entrepreneurs should follow. And typical entrepreneur in the region, once they reach a certain point of their business growth, they make a winery, they start with the truffle growing business or hazelnut plantations. So instead of investing again in businesses that they're the industry that they're good at, and the more communication we make, the more it appeared that during the lunch we had, the discussion we had, we are dealing with the same businesses. I mean, literally the same businesses. And we figured out while, we got in touch directly with each other. So the more communication, the more, it's a very small market, and it's a pity that we don't know more about each other so we can join the forces.
Okay, so Julien, what would be your thoughts and recommendations to the startups and entrepreneurs of this region, and where would you be looking for new ideas?
Well, I'm not sure.
What are your suggestions? And
I'm not sure entrepreneurs need to do anything differently in this region. I think the talent here is nowhere different than it is in the Silicon Valley. I was fortunate enough to went through the startup myself as a founder in the Silicon Valley 10 years ago, and there's nothing missing here in terms of team quality. To get back to your question, is what we're missing. I've been in the US for quite some time. In the Silicon Valley, I studied is a big word, but I try to look at the key differences, and I found one very significant one. To build a successful ecosystem, you need three elements. You need talent. We have them in the region. You need money. Unfortunately, I heard someone in the audience saying that money without passion is nothing. I would agree, but I would turn it around and I would say that passion without money is also nothing. So talent, money, it's coming here. Talent have already been here, but money is really coming. You can see it. And the last thing you need is the exit, okay? And I was in the Silicon Valley, and I mean, Silicon Valley, I hope there's nobody from California here, but it's a mafia, okay? Sorry, Vera. I've seen exactly how a thing works with the big VCs, the Andreessen Horowitz, the Sequoia, and the big corporate development companies such as Google and all those boys. They make deals before a company actually emerge. Okay, so you have the corporate dev guy from Google, he's going his buddy at Sequoia and say, listen, I need you to find me a company doing AI over financial instruments, whatever. And then if you find that company, make it big and I'll buy it. And then you create a virtuous circle. And that is the thing you miss at the moment in our region. There hasn't been big exit, and I'm going to comment on that just a little bit, is it has come with UiPath. we've seen the result of that. I've seen the result of UiPath and the benefit to the region, because now when you go to London or when you go to the US and you raise money for your fund, my fund, I mean, 4 years ago, people were in the US were still asking me if the war was still on in Serbia and in Croatia. Now I go to the same people that didn't pick up the phone when I used to call them, and they are welcoming me, and they ask me to talk about two things: UiPath and Remats. Bugatti, Remats, oh, amazing. He's from Croatia, this guy? Oh, Croatia, oh, amazing. UiPath from Romania. God, Romania, is it still Ceausescu? I mean, so third element, you need an exit. I'm sorry to say to this person talking about passion. Unfortunately, we are in a world that is driven by money. That's the capitalistic environment we are in. It has good sides and bad sides. But we need this third element, which is the exit, to make VC happy. VC happy make LP, institutional investors happy. They come back with their money, fresh money, into the circle. Right. Founders have money. They are generally prone to make early stage investment. We can see it happening a little bit in the region here in Slovenia with Outfit 7. There's been a very good exit from Outfit 7, about $1 billion. And you can see that some of the guys, mid-management of Outfit 7, who made 20, 30 million in the transaction, are very, very active angel investors. So that is what you need. You need one big exit to be the catalyst and the last part of the ecosystem that we are missing.
Very well, fully agree. And we are all aware of underdeveloped capital markets in this area. Some countries are a bit better, the others are trailing really. However, Božidar, how you think of the exits? Obviously, you know, as a scale-up in your mission, the next step is certainly something. And where would you look for the exits? Your investments in InfoBip and Remats goes in this direction.
This is very obvious. Yeah, these guys are going to make some great big IPOs. Everybody's looking forward to that moment. But let me just reflect to the previous question. I think there are two more things missing as well in this region. First one is financial literacy. We're all financially illiterate, most of us. You know, you have this very smart CEO coming out of the university, knowing all kinds of, blockchain platforms, knowing all the best, the very hard programming languages, TensorFlows, Kubernetes of this world, but at the same time, when you ask the guy, okay, how does your balance sheet look like? Then he's like, balance what? I mean, that's important. One of the reasons is those guys cannot afford the proper CFO in the first years. But this is very important because we don't teach kids in schools basics about financials. People don't understand the power of compounding, for instance. And look at me as an engineer talking about financial things. That's the first thing that we're missing, which would be beneficial to the next generations of founders. And second thing is something that I cannot really think of right now. It just disappeared. No, I'm kidding. The second thing that we're missing very much in this region is this very fine but very important link between the real world industry and startup world, between academia, which means universities, and the startup world. Now I'm talking about my favorite subject, banks. Yeah, nobody wants to get employed by the banks nowadays. They just, young people, millennials, new generation, they just hate banks. They hate telcos. And then those companies, and that goes for industry as well, they're going to end up in a very, very tricky situation in which they will not be able to even to find, let alone to pay for the salaries, but they were not able to find proper tech teams to run their businesses. Yeah? And what they're going to do then, they will need to turn around and find the necessary people in startups, in fintechs, in tech in general. This is what's going to happen. But still, we need to work on this link between, again, universities first, and then industry as well. Just as an example, in my former University of Zagreb Electrical Engineering, they are running I think 6th or 7th semester, they're running electrical and hybrid vehicles. Yeah, and this is obviously because of this new industry that's been building in Croatia. And this is where the smart companies are harvesting the future talent there. So if you have an AI company and you can afford it, or machine learning or whatever, talk to your local university and try to establish some kind of education there, because you will find some very smart and interested people there, and then you will not need to bother with the painful process of hiring. You will harvest them early enough. And again, this link is missing.
Okay, thank you all. Since we are running and time flies really, we can discuss as long as we want these topics. I would ask you for a quick round for just in one sentence final thoughts or message to the audience, especially for people who have courage to launch their and try to seize their idea. Vladan, would you go first and then?
I think maybe just in we're in a great market, a lot of talent, a lot of great people. Be encouraged and trust in yourself, and money will come. And it's coming with the people like these guys sitting on my left-hand side. So just, I think when you look at our people and talent, they're way better, and we are in a way better position than other markets, no matter what we think. So use the opportunity. It's not going to last for a long time.
Vera?
I think my favorite is there's no stupid question, right? Just go ask questions, surround yourself with a network of people that can help you, and go ask them all kinds of questions, because it will bridge you a lot of time and pain if you do that. So, yeah.
Thanks.
I will try to forecast using a crystal ball. I think that this region, because of the processes of deglobalization, because of appeal of this region to Western Europe and to the US, this region is definitely going to explode, and I mean it in the most positive sense. In the next 5 to 10 years, it will be very, very potent region of the world here.
One thing is for sure, when speaking about startups, we have to think that we are actually dealing with the smartest and the bravest and the most eager people that we have in the economy at the moment. And instead of trying to change them and trying to teach them something, I think we should definitely work a lot on supporting them to get the best out of them.
And Julien?
Well, sorry to disappoint you, but I have nothing smart to add.
Come on. I'm sure it's not the case, but
I believe in the region.
I mean, appreciate it very much. So since we are running out of time, and I guess there will be plenty of questions for those, but I would not allow that, unfortunately, because we have to respect the time also, the people whose panels are waiting. And we are already in delay, looking at you, Nicola, at first. And but okay, no. There will be plenty of time to discuss on the boundaries. The people are here, meet them, talk to them, and exactly. So use the opportunity, and the format of this conference is aimed on networking and not to listening only. So thank you all, and we are going forward with the program.